Welcome to Financial Footsteps, candid conversations with financial leaders, the podcast that takes you deep into the minds of the masters behind the numbers. Join host Chad Dean as he connects with financial leaders as they share their journeys so that we can gain valuable insight from their failures and triumphs. Get ready for candid conversations, behind-the-scenes anecdotes, and practical wisdom that will transform the way you think about your career in finance. Put down the balance sheet and listen in.
Welcome to Financial Footsteps, where we explore the background and careers of financial leaders for the benefit of those who want to follow in their footsteps. My name is Chad Dean, your host. I have been a recruiter for 27 years, and I'm the owner and CEO of Integrated Management Resources, a Phoenix-based executive recruiting firm established 33 years ago. It's been suggested to me that I explain a little bit more about the podcast and the purpose of the podcast. And the purpose of this podcast is for students or people that are early on in their career that have an interest in achieving high levels in accounting and finance, the executive level, if you will. And as a recruiter, I get to benefit one individual at a time and one company at a time through the various placements that I do. So I was looking for a way that we could impact a tremendous amount of people, more than just one at a time. And so this is a passion of mine, and I'm very fortunate to have guests that are willing to spend their time to come in and also help as many people as they can. So this is sponsored by Integrated. They're the sponsor of this podcast today, which is my company. But let's go ahead and introduce our guest. I'm very excited about our guest today, Arvind Bobra. Arvind has had a long career in accounting and finance. He is full of wisdom, and I know that this will be incredibly beneficial to our listeners to hear his story today. Welcome, Arvind.
Thanks.
So Arvind is currently the CFO of Lesson here in Arizona. That is the name of the company, Lesson. I love some of the names that we have out there with the new startups. So why don't you tell us a little bit, let's start with the personal side of you, Arvind, and tell us a little bit about you, where you're from and family and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chad. So born and raised in Arizona, pretty rare for, I guess, people of my age, not that I'm that old, but yeah, born here, grew up here, went to Chicago for college, worked in Chicago, went to New York for grad school, worked in New York, found my way back to Arizona in 2014. And have beautiful wife and two boys, 12 and 7.
Fantastic. And what do you like to do for fun? Is it family outings, or what do you do for fun?
Sure. Obviously with a busy job and 2 kids, fun is limited, but you got to make time for it. It's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So the couple things that I like to do for fun, one is just playing with the kids is fun. But for time for myself, I make sure I make time for some tennis, make time for yoga, and make time to go to the gym. So those are the most fun things. And then making sure to get some trips with the family, because that's really the only time when you can get the family off their devices together. So outdoor trips with the family are a good thing that we like to do for fun.
That always creates great memories.
For sure.
And stories, right, that can be shared and forever. And those memories are priceless, and you can't get that time back, can you?
Nope.
And it goes by quick.
That's right.
So do you have any particular hobbies?
I don't know if hobbies, I guess tennis would be the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, not any other hobbies outside of that. But I call it a sport, not a hobby, but I don't know the difference.
I need to look into yoga. I'm so tight. Stretching, I'm not good at it. So I need to look into that. So Arvind and I have known each other previously. And one of the things, there are many things that we share in common, but two of the very interesting things are we are both natives. So I'm much older than him, but we're both natives, and we both have degrees in biology, and neither one of us are using our degrees in biology. So that's one of the things that we early connected on, and kind of funny. So I assume that your interest in accounting and finance was not prior to going to college, but I always ask our guests what the genesis of their interest in finance is. And so let's go way back when and tell me about that.
Sure. And I don't know if there's ever a point in time where I'm like, I'm really interested in accounting and finance. You kind of find your way into those careers. So coming in Arizona, I guess growing up here, I actually didn't know anybody in accounting or finance. Growing up, even in college, my first introduction to the finance world was my roommate was like, "Hey, I got a job at an investment bank as a summer analyst," and I'm like, "Great, what is that?" um, and talked a little bit about what he does and the hours he worked. Obviously, we're roommates that summer, and he was not coming home. Then he said, "Hey, Arvind." We actually have so much work to do. I know you have another internship that's not that exciting, you're saying, but why don't you come in? Why don't you end that one at like 4? And then it's right across the street. Just come across the street and then work with us from like 4 till as late as you can. I was like, and we'll pay pretty well. Then back in the day, what was it, like 1998, $14 an hour? I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money then.
Yeah. So I was like, sure. And like, yeah, we'll buy you dinner too, and free dinner. No way. So then I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll come over. And that was my first introduction into the finance and investment banking world. And the other thing is, obviously, we both talked about being biology majors. So I was both a biology and economics major. Um, and I really enjoyed biology. My best subjects in high school and college were probably biology and physics. Um, but my dad was like, don't go into medicine. It's not good anymore. The respect for doctors isn't there. The hours aren't there. You have to put up with insurance companies. It's not what it was like in the 80s. Those were the glory days of being a doctor. And I was like, okay, well, let me try this finance path. I don't know much about it. I don't have role models to help me. I don't have people to advise me on how to do it, but let's see what happens. I started with that internship, um, that part-time internship, call it, which then became a full-time internship the following summer. And then I joined Lazard then as a full-time investment banking analyst in 2001. Still knew what investment banking was, but it still wasn't like, ooh, I want to be, get into accounting and finance, and I want to be a CFO. That really didn't come until much later.
I wonder if you could do that today in this day and age. Could you be a biology major and pick up an investment banking job other than being an equity analyst for bio companies, right? I wonder if you could do that in today's day and age. That's interesting.
I think so. In general, at least it was when I was there. And I haven't recruited an investment bank in a while, but it was more like we need people who are first and foremost passionate and smart, and proven themselves capable to be able to figure things out and have that strong desire to learn. And so there are people, public policy majors, English majors, etc. Because at the end of the day, anything you do as an investment banking analyst, you pretty much don't learn any of that at school. You really have to learn all of that on the job. And so I think they generally do recruit, passionate people who are not necessarily finance majors. For the record, University of Chicago didn't even offer a finance major.
You're kidding?
No.
Accounting? Anything?
No. It is a liberal arts school. We're going to teach you. So even intro to finance was multivariable calculus.
Mhm.
That's what we learned in intro to finance. It was not finance. It wasn't interest rates and what happens to interest rates when bond prices go. None of that. It was multivariable calculus. That was intro to finance.
Fascinating.
Yep.
So was it your father a big influence on you not choosing the medical route?
But then it kind of, when you're younger in your career, you're like, wow, investment banking pays this much. If I go a doctor first, I have to go to 4 more years of med school. Then I got to do residency, and then I got to do a fellowship. And so I'm like, I can start making money now. By the time I'll be done with fellowship, I might be 4 promotions in. And so that was, I could say it was passion, but at the beginning it was just like, ooh, I can get more money faster.
Right.
So
that's kind of what took me out of biology too, frankly. I wanted to be a pilot in the military and make a military career. My dad was career military, and he says, oh, the military is not the way it used to be. It's not as good as it used to be. It's too political. And this was in the 80s. And he's talking about the good old days, right? The way it was before. It's very similar to what your father said. And it had a very strong influence on me. and I chose not to go the military route. Now, I'll tell you this, my father retired, fully retired, and never worked a day in his life 1 year from my age today. So I'm thinking 1 year from now, I could be retired for the rest of my life. But had I chosen that other path, now I don't know when I'm going to retire, but luckily I enjoy what I'm doing.
Yep. Good.
So tell us, what was it like going into investment banking? What was that first year like?
Yeah, it's as bad as the stories are. I mean, it is no days off. It is Saturday and Sunday in the office. It is past midnight in the office most every day of the week other than Friday. Um, it it's something I didn't have any advisors, mentors, so I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I struggled quite a bit. I didn't have the right not in the work. My work product was good. Other than that, in terms of how to balance, like how to lead a healthy life, because in college you have so much free time, and all of a sudden you have negative free time. So how do you maintain a healthy, happy life? How do you balance it, and how do you maintain positivity? Those things I struggled with. And so, I look back on that person I was after, a year or so investment banking. That's not the person that I wanted to be, that I was becoming, and I didn't have my head on the right way. And so I learned a lot, I worked a lot, but probably wasn't in the best both mental state or physical state. Um, I actually got pretty unhealthy even then, because you're sleeping 4 hours a night. I didn't realize, when you're young, I was eating pizza twice a day. And it's so not sleeping, partying on the weekends, and then sleeping 4 hours a night. And I got really unhealthy really quickly. And it's kind of a cyclical, your body and your mind, how they interact. And without mentors and someone to tell you, here's how you manage it. I struggled mentally. My work product was great, but mentally I wasn't in a good spot.
How'd you overcome that?
Through trial and error. So I got pretty unhealthy. I was like, I have no energy. I'm like, my hair is falling out. Like, what's going on? And so then I started learning, reading, and then started changing both my my outside of work lifestyle and health, and started realizing that it's equally important to take care of yourself. In order to have a long career, you have to take care of yourself both mentally and physically. Otherwise, your ability to continue to work hard and enjoy your work diminishes.
100%. And you've had to find that out the hard way, but experience is the best teacher, right?
That's right. I wish I had better mentors earlier in my career, though I don't know if I was even a good mentee, meaning I don't know if I made myself available even to listen to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, didn't have the best personality, not in a good spot. Generally, unless someone really cares for you, and if you don't want to listen, no one's going to tell you to.
Yeah. So how long were you in that job?
So I did investment banking for 3 years.
At the same company?
I did move after 2 years to another investment bank, but still in Chicago.
Same thing though?
Same thing. Yep.
Same thing?
Yep.
Okay. And then what happened? Like, what opportunity came to you, and how did it come to you?
So I actually then so remember I said it wasn't in the best mental spot or physical spot. And it didn't have mentors. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do next, but I didn't know how to do it. I was like, I really like the financial side. I loved doing the valuation. I loved understanding business models. I loved creative financial solutions. But with the one thing missing on the investment banking side is, like, I wanted to be a little more real. I want to do this on the company side. I want to help drive the operations of a company, because that's where I feel like I just knew that there's more you can do than just finance, a connection of finance and operations of a company. And so the natural thing I thought was like, well, maybe let's be a hands-on private equity owner. And so I was like, I want to do that. But I didn't know, I got a bunch of interviews, but I didn't know how the right things to say, like you don't have a mentor. You have no one training you for interviews. You have no one explaining to you exactly what, I had this outsider view of private equity, what exactly it is, and how to be prepared for them. And so that's what I really wanted to do. I didn't get the private equity job that I wanted. So I was like, okay, let me just go to business school, and that will then help me maybe give me the right skill set, or the right network, or the right mentors to get down the path that I want to be going down.
nowadays, I kid you not, when you can go to Fiverr. Have you heard of Fiverr?
Yeah.
You can go to Fiverr, and there are people that you can pay to teach you how to do a private equity interview, how to do a FANG interview, how to do an investment banking interview. It's crazy. So there now you could, so everybody that's listening, if you want to pay for some professional advice, obviously make sure they have a good number of reviews and stuff like that. But that is out there now, just on Fiverr. It's fascinating. I don't know. I was messing around on there the other day.
Oh, that's cool. The only thing I knew then was the vault.com guide to private equity or the vault.com to investment banking.
Go.
Like that was the only guide. So I read the book, memorized everything in the book, but that was it.
Right.
That was all I had. I was like, wow, that's all I can read.
Yeah. So you decided you're going to go back to school. You were going for an MBA, obviously. How did you choose your school, Columbia, or did it choose you? And tell me about that.
Yeah, effectively, both the way undergrad chooses you and grad chooses me is is the best school that I got into. So I got into University of Chicago and Columbia, both great schools. I'd gone to University of Chicago for undergrad, so I was like, let's do something different. Let's go to Columbia. I think the ranking's slightly higher, though both are comparable programs. But I thought it'd be great to be in New York in a new school, and that's how I ended up there.
Center of the financial universe.
Yeah.
New York City.
Yep.
So tell me about the program.
Program is great. I would say an MBA is probably the least academic master's degree you can get. And then coming from investment banking, all of the finance and accounting classes were extremely easy. And so I was like, well, I already know that. So I didn't come here to learn what I already know. I need to learn things that I don't know. So I tried to focus on management and marketing classes so that I could, branch outside of my comfort zone and learn skills that I don't have. But the biggest thing in business school is actually taking advantage, especially when you're in a big city like New York, is you get great speakers because anyone is like, oh yeah, come by. Like you can get great, adjunct professors, great panelists for various panel discussions because no one's going to say no to get jumping in a car or train to head up to Columbia to speak to students for an hour. And so that was what I really enjoyed. And then the other part is because you're already in New York, you can do internships even while you're in school a couple of days a week. And so I'd really taken advantage of the network, the people, and the city is what I really enjoyed. The classwork is there, but at the end of the day, you're not going to become a marketing genius or a management genius or even a finance genius just through an MBA program. It basically gives you smart enough to know what you don't know so you can ask the right questions. That's the way I'd kind of describe an MBA program.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're looking for internships, how do you find those?
So there's a few different ways. Obviously, there are companies that come to campus to recruit. So your traditional apply through the on-campus recruiting programs. But then there's also, and the right way to do it is also to network, to really be focused on what you want to do, reach out to the alumni network and say, hey, I'm a student, I would love to speak with you. You're in the industry or the vertical that I want to be in, and would love to just pick your mind about how I can, here's exactly what I want to do, and here's how, give me some advice.
What was the response when you did that?
I'm saying that's what you should do. I didn't say that's what I did do.
Okay, got it. Got it. That's funny.
Again, not having even in business school, right? I didn't make myself a good mentee.
Right.
And so these are the things that I can tell someone now
Got it.
the couple that I did do didn't necessarily do that. Because also when you meet with someone has to tell you, what are you supposed to say?
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest mistake I did is I did a few of these, but I wasn't really clear. I'm like, what should I do? Like, what do you think? Here's my skill set. What do you think is good for me? No, you should go in, even if it's not the right thing, you should go in with some kind of passion. You've done work. Hey, I really like this. Here's what I really want to do. And then it's a lot easier for people to help you. It's really hard for someone to help you when you don't know what you want yourself. Maybe you can ask your best friends, what should I do? But if you're really going to go out, you have to be specific. You can change your mind later, but you have to show specifics. You've done work in a specific vertical, you've shown passion in a specific vertical, then it's a lot easier for people to help you.
Absolutely. The passion part, especially.
Yep.
So you are, you go in with the mindset that you want to work in private equity. Is that where you stayed focused with that mindset going through grad school?
I did. I said either I wanted to be on, and it kind of morphed a little bit into either private equity or the hedge fund side. Um, uh, I guess you got attracted, or pre market 2005, 2006, hedge funds were like, ooh, this is a great place to be. There's a lot of money to be made here. So either one. So my focus is both call it the buy side, either private equity or hedge funds.
So how'd you find your first job?
First job, again, interesting story. That one was, so my job was, the business school professor, one of the classes, I think it was our restructuring class. The business school professor, I did well in the class. And so the professor was like, Arvin, what do you want to do next? I was like, I really want to be on the buy side, and I really like, but I want to be involved in the operations somehow. And then he's like, I got a great guy. He's looking for candidates. He has a small multi-strategy fund. He's looking into doing investing in various parts of the capital structure, as well as making private equity investments. I'm like, ooh, both. That sounds great. It was a relatively small fund, but then he made the introduction, and it was a good fit. And that was my first job out of business school.
Was it what you thought it would be?
No, because I graduated in 2007. And
we all know what train's coming down the track.
Exactly. And so any type of, especially when you're trying to invest in various parts of the capital structure, so different type of debt instruments, pretty much anything anyone thought was going to happen, worse happened. And so it was, wasn't exactly what it was supposed to be, but I think it did help me go down what I think was actually my true calling, which I probably didn't know until probably like 2017.
Wow.
Because I guess we'll get to that, but yeah, I think it was the right. I don't think I would have been happy in the hedge fund world as I am in an actual operating company.
Yeah. So a lot of people, most people that were in New York in finance in 2007, 8, 9, 10, they were just trying to survive. What were those years like for you?
So luckily I was able to land somewhere very quickly after the fund I was at basically shut down. There was one investment in a pre-IPO company. It was traded on the pink sheets in London, and they were actually doing well. And in one of the investments, and they were looking to grow. And so the head of the firm made the call to the CFO of this company called Globe Specialty Metals, and made a warm introduction, and I ended up there. And that was my first job on the corporate side. I didn't plan on being on the corporate side. I just ended up there because it was 2008.
It was a job,
and it was a job in finance in New York in 2008, which were few and far between. So I said, let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes.
How was that? How'd it go?
It was good. So I walked in first day thinking, I'm some big shot. I've done investment banking. I'm a hedge fund guy. I'm pretty good. So walk in first day, CFO was like, hey, for the prior quarter variance, can you do a price volume mix chart? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So first thing comes in day one, day one, I was like, I guess I'm not that.
I don't know anything.
I'm not that much of a hot shot. And so I didn't know how to make the price volume chart. So I said, what do you mean? Can you explain to me a little bit better what you mean? Thankfully, it's just math. And so I was able to figure it out quickly, but I didn't even know where to begin first. And it wasn't, maybe there was some, but it wasn't as, the internet wasn't as there. I could just Google it really quickly. So I had to ask. And but that was good. So then I was humbled on day one, which is good because the only way you learn is when you're humble. And so it was good to be humbled on day one, and that really opened me to learn and get more excited and really get deep into the operations. I really learned how much I enjoy operations and connecting finance, accounting, and operations. Because in a company you have accountants saying one thing, you have finance people saying one thing, and you have the operating guy saying another thing. And all three of them get in the ear of the CEO. So the CEO will be like, the operations guy just said everything was amazing last month. Why is margin down? And so you have to understand the operations deeply, understand the accounting deeply to then explain why why the financial statements, why finance is saying something different. And so I really enjoyed the interplay, and still to this day, I mean, that's the interplay of those three, finance, accounting, and operations.
Yep. I was going to ask you something about that. Now I just forgot, but because I got distracted by another question. How many operations people know how finance works? Are they pretty good at it?
The good ones do.
Do they?
The good ones get it. but they still need a good finance business partner. The only ones who get it, who had a good finance business partner, who they worked hand in hand with to explain, got it, this is what you just did. You just change your standard cost. You just change your minutes runtime. You just change your yield. What does that mean in this quarter's P&L and what that means over the year? Because each, some things have, and there's some discretion on how you account for some of those things as well. And so it's just really important for an operations person to have a really good finance business partner, and then they know to ask the right questions and they understand how it works.
Yeah. I know what I was going to talk about is the Google thing, right? So I love to talk about when I started recruiting quantitative analysts for Wall Street. You could barely even look up what an interest rate derivative was on the internet and figure out what it was. You especially couldn't find out what a PhD quant that developed algorithms for derivatives. That was just like, forget about it. And so what's interesting in today's day and age is leaders are looking to hire people that can at least go out and research solutions and try to find a way to fix the problem first and then come to me. That's what a lot of people tell me. They go, I want somebody that can solve problems. And so in today's day and age, you can solve problems so much quicker by going out to Google, by going to YouTube, by going to all these different resources that are out there. But I always suggest to people that you do that research and you come back humbly to the leader and say, look, these are my findings. What do you think about these solutions, right? Instead of coming in, oh, I got the solution, because Google isn't always right.
Yeah, good. That's good to know. Yep.
So, all right. So tell me, kind of those years as now you're in industry, what started happening to you and what kind of opportunities were coming to you in New York?
So New York, I was effectively at one company for 6 years. So that company, Globe Specialty Metals, I effectively stayed there for 6 years. And I enjoyed that because of how lean the team was. It was effectively like a 15-person corporate office. Now it was basically a roll-up of global manufacturing assets. So some of the manufacturing locations had a small accounting or finance staff, really accounting staff. But really everything was centrally managed by a team of like 15 people. And so that was really fun because I got to do a little bit of everything. It was basically me and the CFO running all of finance as a public company. So there's like a 4-person accounting team, me and the CFO doing finance. And so it was a little bit of everything. It was like everything the CFO had to do, I got to be involved in. So all, IPO readiness and all of the things as a public company. The first time we did do earnings calls, the first time we had to do investor presentations, the first time we had to do investor roadshow, the first time we did an analyst day, all of those things, you got to do it for the first time. And it was a small team, so you got to really do everything. And so that's what I really enjoyed because I learned a lot. I was doing, I'd write the result of operations in the 10K. There was one factory where they make the same product. One has a higher cost than the other one. Go figure it out. There's no one else to ask, right? Who can understand the interplay of finance, accounting, and operations? So you get to do a little bit of everything and really learn being right under the CFO. And I always thought I had, to being the only finance guy. So that means when the chairman needed something, it was an executive chairman, the CEO needed something, the CFO needed something, they all came to me. And so I really did enjoy that. And it was a great learning opportunity to learn, just experience a lot, figure out stuff a lot, learn with, that was, I think, everyone's first public company. The CFO, CEO, and chairman had never been at a public company before, so you get to learn with them.
From the outside, me sitting over here, that looks like an incredible stroke of luck for you and just maybe change the entire course of your career. Is that fairly accurate? Because you didn't know you wanted to be in industry, right?
That's right. So I randomly ended up in industry and actually really ended up enjoying it and ended up being in a place where I could learn a lot really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a stroke of luck. So tell me, why did that end and what was the next thing that happened?
Yeah, so it's good to move on. So the CFO then, after about 6 years there, the CFO left, and the company was kind of changing its culture and location. Is actually relocating to Florida. CFO had just left, and then the CFO was like, "Arvin, why don't you come work for me?" I'm going to go be interim CFO of this private equity backed company. We really need a lot of help, and you have the right skill set needed to come help us. So I was like, yeah, let's try something different. This is probably the right time. I don't want to move to Florida with this company, and let's try something new. And I really had a really good relationship with the CFO, and I didn't necessarily want a new boss. So I was like, yeah, I'll come work for you.
So at what point did you manage the accounting team, or did the CFO manage the accounting team at the previous job?
So I haven't had accounting until this recent job. I wasn't running the finance part. Wow. This is my first job where I'm managing the accounting staff.
Got it. Okay. So when did you have your first management experience? When did that come?
So it was at that Globe Specialty Metals. Well, I had when you, as an investment bank, when you're a third-year analyst, you can kind of have a first-year analyst under you on some projects, but that's not being a real manager. That's just like working together with someone on a project. I had a small team. I had up to 2 directs at this company, Globe Specialty Metals, but again, it's really just kind of working together. It's not really until I had a meaningfully large team at Axon that I really became a people manager and really had to learn that skill set and really enjoyed being a people manager of a sizable team. So that was really the job after the private equity job, which was Axon.
Gotcha. So let's fast forward through the private equity job, because I know that I'm sure you learned a lot there. But talk to me about, how did Axon come to you? It's back in Phoenix. How did that come to you, and how did you get that job?
Yeah. So I had moved. So that private equity company was based in Texas. So I was like, let me use this opportunity to move my family back to Arizona. And that was in the 2014 when I moved back from New York to Arizona. I was still doing consulting for that Texas company, but I was actually helping the company ready for sale. So after about at the end of the year, they're like, okay, we're ready. We're going to put the company up for sale. I was performing quite well. And they finally had the data and the insights they needed to understand the business that I provided them. And they're like, let's put it up for sale. So I knew the job would end because I was like effectively a consultant for the private equity firm. So I was like, I need my next thing. And so I started asking around to recruiters like yourself. Unfortunately, I didn't find you then, but
I wasn't doing that then. So that's
good.
why.
So I said, I want something dynamic. I can't do a traditional FP&A job, a traditional finance job. I need something that's a little bit intense, a little bit crazy, needs to be messy as well. Because that's where I thrive. I don't thrive in like repetitive, established processes. That's not, I can't function in that kind of environment. So I told the recruiters, kept doing the consulting job, and something came along. They're like, we have this great opportunity we think we're good for, a company called Taser. I'm like, Taser? I'm like, okay, sure. Like, if you think, like, what do you mean that's going to be like intense and crazy and growing and like messy? Like, just make tasers or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'll go check it out. Little did I know, when I got in and did some researches, they're like, oh, we want to get big into body cameras. We're going to become a software company. I'm like, you guys sell tasers. I mean, a software company. I'm like, but yeah, it sounds exciting. You guys, I walked in the door, and I don't know if anyone's been to the offices there, but you walk in, you go through a portal. It's almost like entering a new realm. Like, because the CEO's idea there is like, if you want to change the world, you can't think like everyone else. You have to come into an environment where you can think differently than everyone else. We're going to change the world. We're going to transform the world. And you got that feeling when you walked in the door, when you talked to everybody. I'm like, they're onto something big here. And this has this culture that I've never seen before. I've never seen this kind of like, let's think outside the box. Let's think different, and so
that attracted you.
That attracted me. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the job?
So I started as director of FP&A. It was basically a one-man show, again, under the CFO. And it's like, hey, we want to become a software company. We need new software metrics. They're like, what software metrics should we report on? And I'm like, well, let me ask, now that I have more friends, more mentors. I'm like, let me ask all my hedge fund friends. Let me ask all the friends. Where do I learn about what SaaS metrics are? I didn't even heard the word SaaS before that. I'm like, let me learn what all these SaaS metrics are. So I did, a bunch of research, bunch of reading, and started, just learning about all the different things. Got deep, I understand the manufacturing side of the world well. I did not understand the software side of the world well. And I hadn't been in high growth environments where everything is changing all the time. And so the quick summary of the 8 years I spent at Axon are that every year was a different company. The company reinvented itself every year, which means I had to reinvent myself every year, which means I had to evolve myself and the way I do everything every year. But I really enjoyed that because you get to change, you get to hire teams that do that, you get to figure out new things, you have to push yourself to become and learn more every year. So it was just incredible. I always I don't know the right way to say it, but Axon is the first time in my life where I felt like every part of like my capability, like it was like the word I use is the first time my brain had been tickled before, where like everything that I'm capable of doing, I got to use at the same time. So it's understanding people, understanding, managing a team well, getting, understanding products, understanding, processes, understanding operations, finance. It was like the first time where everything got put together and I had to use everything, at the same time. And so that was like, the next evolution. I'm like, oh man, because that was the real people. I didn't have the people access of all the other places I'd been before. They were either just, it was machinery, it was manufacturing. It was like, even if there was people, it was like, they were just labor inputs into the model. This is the first time where, there was the assets were the people, and the forecast didn't come from what the yield was going to be out of the factory. It came out of understanding people and understanding what people said, understanding people's capabilities, understanding when someone said something, if they're going to do what they said or they can't do what they said, or if someone who says something and they're going to do double what they said they're going to do. So that was always like, there's a whole people aspect of it. And getting people to tell you stuff, it means you have to make relationships with them and you have to understand them and you have to build trust and and so all of that coming together, that's one more. There was accounting, finance, operations, and people comes together too. So that was the fourth one. It didn't come until I started working with a lot of people, and it was So that was just that. Yeah, that just really, I don't know. The only word I can come up with is it tickled my brain in the right way. I don't have a better way to describe it.
Did you have that people skill? Was that innate in you?
So I don't know if it was innate or not, or if it was something that I had. It's tough to tell because I had really, really good role models at Axon. So I don't know if it was like I learned from watching them or I had it already in there. Because on day one, I'm copying the best. Like there's, I'll call out the president of Axon at the time was Luke Larson. He was a former, I don't know, being a person from the military. He was the most. I've never yet to see someone who can motivate people and motivate an organization better than he can. The only way I could describe it and figure it out in my head was like, he learned the skill of what it takes to lead a group of men to run to their death in battle. Like he brought that level of like, so we all ran as hard as we can into, like, now there's not physical violence, but to make Axon succeed, he would make people do things that they didn't believe they could do, or put, work harder than they couldn't, or put a challenge for them that was that would allow someone to rise above what they thought they were capable of doing. So I got to learn from him. And then my other person who I thought is a phenomenal people manager and put this phenomenal culture together was the CFO I reported to starting in 2017, was Jawad Hassan, another incredible people manager. He had he learned how to hire the best and brightest people and put them together to work in a way that they work together. And it was just incredible. So I had the two of them to learn from. And then I obviously had to put that together and make it my own. But somehow I did something right, because I'll go into my two claims to fame, which I'm sure I told you on the people access. My two claims to fame in my 8 years at Axon, I built a team. It started from just me as a one-man show to a team of 25. And in that time, I had 100% offer to acceptance. And there are people I didn't match offers. People like, I got a higher offer here somewhere else, or I was making more at my last job. I was like, this is what we can offer. So 100% offer to acceptance and 0 regrettable attrition. So that means no one who I ranked highly, not a single person who was highly ranked left. And so I must have done something right. And as further proof to that, I've been able to recruit 5 people over from Axon to follow me over to Lesson. And so did something right. And I think it just goes back to like, every time I was treated wrong in my career, I'm like, I don't want anyone else to feel that ever again. Like, I knew what made me get the best out of myself, and I knew what made me the worst out of myself. And I knew when days, and I use this term, I don't know if this term exists or not, but I know the days when I did hate work. Hate work is when you're working, but you hate every minute, and you're cursing, you're yelling, you're angry, but you're working. I call that hate work. I'm like, I never want to have to do hate work, and I never want anyone on my team to ever have to do hate work. And so it's just like, I don't know, just following what worked for me and what didn't work for me from my other managers, and doing what worked. And so it's some combination of that, watching people, experiencing things, putting it all together. Um, so I must have had something on my own to make it work, but definitely had a lot of great people to learn from.
So I'm glad you brought those metrics up, because when you first shared those with me, those are incredible numbers. So the one thing about trying to recruit out of Axon is the fact that you said, yes, they hire incredibly high quality people. So the mere fact that you got hired there speaks about your background. But what is it? How do you create that culture of only hiring the best and only expecting the best out of the best? Was that just that leader's mentality and everybody fell in line? Do people that are high performers want to be a part of that culture because it makes them feel, it just makes them feel good? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So one thing that is really important is, Axon knew this early on, that making a bad hire is really expensive, and hiring talent is the only thing, meaning talent plus culture is the only thing that's going to get us to the next level. And so, even when I interviewed, and I was a director, not even a VP, the CEO interviewed me. The president and the CEO interviewed me for a director level job. And, and even still to this day, now the CEO or president don't interview director level people, but there's still what they call an ACE system. I forgot what it stands for, but basically another leader of a different department. If you want to hire someone, you have to have another leader from another department validate that hire. So you can't get hiring fatigue. You have to make sure the bar stays the same. So that's one thing. But the point is, but where I was going with this is that, from everything I've seen so far, is A players hire A players, players hire B players, and C players hire C players. Like, maybe a C player can hire a B player. An A player sees an A player, and an A player who's interviewing also knows that a person interviewing me is an A player, and it's recognized, and they want to work together. And a B player may not recognize an A player when they see it. But an A player does recognize an A player when they see it, and they like, so, I'm not trying to put myself, but like, there was, the CEO, we got along well. He asked me some tough questions. He asked me math questions and market sizing questions, and a lot of tough questions. And he's like, you got all these, you're hired. Like, it's just yeah, it just, and then, and now, that goes to the 100% offer to acceptance ratio. It's like, when someone is good, like, there's almost a magic that happens when I interview someone of like the right caliber. Like, it's like, you already know this person's there. Like, one of the easiest tells is when I interview the person, I cover almost double or triple the amount of content in a 45-minute interview than I do with someone who's not. Like, it just all comes together. It's just like the minds just kind of get on a similar wavelength. And to be clear, my team was probably the most diverse team in terms of capabilities. They're all players, but very different type of A players. So it's not like they were the same as me. That's just, they were capable, and like, I guess that's the other thing too, is I was able to work with so many different personality types, because I didn't make any of the team members change to how I wanted to work. I changed myself to how they wanted to work. And so that was the other thing that allowed me to hire a more variety of type of A players, because everyone has what I told in almost every single staff meeting that I held is, I reminded everyone, every single one of you are on this team because you have a superpower. And I want to make sure that you're utilizing your superpowers. And if you're not utilizing your superpowers, let me know. But that didn't ever happen, because not only did I tell them they had superpowers, I was very specific on a one-on-one basis of what their superpowers were. And they already knew that I put them in a position where they were utilizing their superpowers. And that's what makes someone happy. That like when someone gets to utilize their superpowers, they don't get burnt out at work. They feel valued. They feel recognized. Like my team probably took the least amount of vacation of any team, but they never once complained about burnout. I'll take a small cheap shot, but when I left Axon in exactly a year ago, I'll just say this: the CFO had taken more vacation than all of my team combined.
Interesting. We're going to do a whole nother podcast about A players, B players, and C players, and C players being able to hire B players. I love that little thing you went down right there. That's very interesting. So tell me, did you struggle at any point in leadership, or you never have struggled in leadership?
I've struggled plenty in my career. Would I say the struggles were of leadership? I don't know. I guess of the struggles I've had, leadership hasn't been one of the places where I was like, man, I'm really struggling on leadership, but not, that's not to say I haven't struggled in people axes on multiple things. Like I've struggled in every possible thing you can think of. I've struggled at, but like, that's the fun of life, is working through adversity and working through struggle and coming out the other end. But there weren't particular challenges where I was like, man, I don't like being a leader. I'm struggling to be a leader. But there's things I had to learn. I had to be forced to fire my first person. And then after literally the president and the COO sat me down and they're like, you must fire this person. And I'm like, but I've never fired anyone. But I'm like, no, those are things you have to learn. And then after doing it, I'm like, this is so much better. Like the rest of the team feels better because they're like, an underperformer was let go. So they're like, they enjoy working harder. And then it helps raise the bar of the team and hold a level of accountability.
That's the key.
Yep.
The accountability.
Yep.
I'm always in search of, and you seem like an incredible leader. I'm always in search of, is leadership natural? Is it learned? Are there certain people that can't even learn to be a leader? But it's more, is it innate? Is it just in somebody, or can you teach somebody how to be a really good leader? And I think you mentioned the military. The military is a whole different system. You have to follow the rules or you're going to be court-martialed. So it's a whole different animal, but to be able to take that from the military and transfer it to a company like Axon for your president, that says something about that individual as a leader, both in the military and in civilian life. So I'm always in search of that. So now you're at Axon for 8 years. How do you know that it's time to leave, and how do you know what your next opportunity is going to be?
Sure. You never know, but what are the things in my head of the right time to leave? So one of the things that happened in a good way, which is, I think, a sign of a good leader, is you're always thinking about how you can build out the team that makes yourself obsolete. And so
love that.
I continue to hire as good of a team. You never want to make, like, that's one thing of an A player. An A player is never going to be scared of hiring an A player that might outshine them. I'm like, no, I want everyone I hire to be better than me at something or everything. And so I always try to hire the best of the best. So what happened near as I was getting towards the end, I really enjoyed, like, I was getting less and less to work with the finance, with the partners, like with the operating partners across the organization. I wanted to drive stuff. I wanted to sit down. Like, I just love sitting down with someone in the business. Like, let's build a model for your new business. Let's understand your new business. So my team wouldn't let me do any of that anymore. They're like, no, we got this. Like, no, Arvin, you don't need to attend the meeting. We got this. So I was like, I was still working really hard, but I wasn't getting to do like I was getting more senior. The team was getting big enough. I wasn't able to do as much of the work with the organization. So I was getting a little comfortable. So I was like, you never want to be comfortable in your career. Comfortable means you're not growing. And so that was one of the things. I was getting a little bit comfortable. And then the second thing obviously was, it was, and then it's not exactly the reason I left, but it was one of the factors is I wanted to be CFO somewhere, and I did not get the CFO job at Axon. And so I was like, I need to write my own story. I need to put my own influence, my own culture really on an organization that I can do, as a C-level executive. And so that, I was like, I think now is the time.
So how do you do that? What do you do when you're getting comfortable in your job and you need to make a move? What did you do?
So then I just call recruiters and say, hey,
By the way, this is not an advertisement for recruiters to all our listeners, but I love it.
That's correct. Yeah. Chad is not, I am not, he's not recruited for me. Yes. No, but recruiters have helped me a lot in my career. But the reality is I didn't proactively, that's probably one thing I'd say in my career is for all the jobs I got, they kind of found me. I didn't find them. That's one thing I'd say. And there are people who are more proactive about going out and reaching people. I've been more lucky in that a lot of good opportunities have almost come to me through recruiters, but or through my professor, for example, in business school, less so of me proactively going for them. So this one, a recruiter reached out to me. So a lot of recruiters, I mean, that's their job, right? There's a lot of them. They reached out, and the one thing I did is, I didn't take obviously the first job. I'd started recruiting quite some time ago, because someone had given me the advice that you can't start recruiting when you're ready to find your next job. You actually have to start before that, because it takes a while to put yourself together and how to present yourself in front of a recruiter, in front of a company, how to sell yourself. You're not going to get the job on the first interview you take. If you haven't interviewed for 8 years, you're not going to get a job in your first interview. You're not going to know what to say. You're not going to know how to summarize yourself in 30 seconds. And
that is great advice, by the way. It's true. You don't interview for a living, and you need practice. You need reps in order to get good at it. So that's fantastic advice.
Yeah. And so I took a lot of the inbound calls I got for jobs. I don't think I proactively reached out to anyone, but I'd been interviewing for a little while, not with the intent of leaving, but the intent of the advice of like, I got to learn how to interview again. It's been 8 years, and literally it was a lot longer than that, because I actually did one interview. I didn't have to interview for that private equity job. So I hadn't interviewed since 2008, because I luckily got the Taser job. That was the only interview I took then. So literally I'd only done one interview since 2008. So I was like, I have only done one interview since 2008. I am not going to be an all-star interviewer. So I started taking I basically took all the inbound interviews that I got, but didn't have, I wasn't looking to leave. So, I either let them know after the first round or they let me know either way. And then when I was ready to go, then I really put in that next level effort. I was really ready to leave, and that passion, again, we talked about passion, that passion that I really am ready for the next step came out, and things find themselves. I found the right opportunity, in the right place at the right time. And it kind of aligned.
So you go into a company that had previously had a CFO?
They did have a CFO.
So you come in where there was previously a CFO. Did you inherit staff?
I did inherit staff. Yes.
How do you put your culture stamp on a new organization?
The first thing you got to do is lead by example. You can't tell people. You can't. Most people are wary of a new boss. I've had multiple new bosses. You really don't. No one wants to like their new boss. Actually, they'll put on the song and dance, but at the end of the day, they're like, "I've been here a long time. I know more than you." And you probably kind of come in here and think you're a big shot and like everything, or and so the first thing you got to do is you just got to be the person you want. Got to stay humble, right? So day one, I know nothing. Tell me you've been here longer than I have. And then the level of the accountability and the level of work I want from my team, I got to start doing that myself and showing them that that's a level of work, the level of accountability, the level that I expect. And then you earn the trust.
Do you put those expectations out in the beginning, or do you come in and show the work and then say, hey, this is the level of expectation that I have?
I've never once had to say the level of expectation. You demonstrated. I've never once said it to anybody.
Wow. Yep. Interesting. So they see it and they know that's what's expected. And if they're not performing, then obviously you'll have the one-on-ones and discuss it, right?
Yeah, but everybody knows, like either they rise to the level, or
they self-select out.
Or or they have to be moved out. But yeah, I rarely, because it's a weird thing, and this is not, but I don't think feedback doesn't necessarily work. Like if someone's capable of doing something, they would have done it. Most of the time, the feedback people get is things that they're not actually capable of doing. They're like, because if someone's capable, they see what everyone else is doing and they rise to it. Most of the time, I haven't really seen a situation where you give like, hey, I want you to do this. If they were capable of doing it, they would have done it. So there's like the best way to get people to raise this is for them to see the expectation, to see yourself and the other people on the team, and feeding off of each other.
Hence why underperformers need to go quickly, so that it doesn't negatively affect the team and bring the whole team down. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, I mean, I want to go deeper and deeper into all this because you're full of some really, really good insight. But I want you to kind of go back. So let's go all the way back and tell me about things that maybe you wish you would have done differently, or what kind of perspective do you have on the first beginning of your career?
Yeah, I think about that a lot because, as I tell people, I wouldn't have hired the person that I was at 23. Like that's not like that person wouldn't work on my team. I would fire that. I would fire 23-year-old Arvin from Arvin's team.
What were you that was at that time?
I was at a little bit. I was arrogant, and hopefully people like still call me that today. So more than I was today. I was arrogant. I had a bad attitude. I was a little bit entitled. I was, I didn't have this one nugget. I do listen a little bit. One person told me, and they said, the work you're doing, you should never think about the work you're doing today. You should think about the work that, you should pretend like that someone may see it. Like you should do don't like, at some point someone may look at your work or may not look at your work. Your work should always be really good, whether someone's asked for it or not. You should always be doing your best. And it was said a little bit better than that. But anyway, the point was like, you got to always be, just because the CEO didn't ask for this detail, but you know where he's going for. If the CEO said, I just want to know this one question, but you know what the question is behind the question, you get into their mind and try to give them what they actually need. I was of this like, well, he didn't ask that. Why would I stay an extra hour work to do the extra thing? They're like, no, that's the exact wrong attitude. And so I eventually started shifting myself to being, when I wasn't the boss, is, but I am the boss. And what does a boss want? Like, I run the company. This is my company. Obviously, I'm the junior employee. I run the company. So what would I, as a person who run the company, want? And so then I would then, do work on that, whether it was asked for or not. And so that was kind of changing my mindset from being an employee to being an owner of the company. And that shifts your mindset in everything you do.
I am curious to see how your boys grow up. They have the same work ethic as you. One of my children does, and the other one is exceptionally good at school, but doesn't have the same work ethic, or maybe he does. I mean, he's still young, but I'm curious to see how your boys turn out, right? If that's in them, that work ethic, because I mean, clearly you have it, and you have the desire to excel. Do you think that grew on you over time, or did you always have it in you and you just needed somebody to kind of light that in you?
It's a little bit of everything. It's yeah, obviously I got some advice. I did listen a little bit. I did understand what works and doesn't work. And at some point, this team mentality came in. And it's like, if I don't do this, I'm letting the team down. I don't care if I'm not successful, but what if the people around me aren't, and it's my fault? And so that kind of mindset shifted. And then the one thing we talked about, which is the way to be successful yourself, is to help, which is kind of the purpose of this podcast, and which is, the energy you put out is the energy you get back. So if you put the energy that I want my boss to be successful, I want the people around me to be successful, I want everyone around me to be successful, then that energy comes back to you. And so that shifts the mindset of your work, where you're like, no, I'm doing my work for the people around me. I'm not working the extra hour for myself. I'm working the extra hour for the company, for everyone on board who's working so hard. I don't want to let them down. And so that, when you get tired, that pushes you a little bit to work harder.
That's going to be an outtake right there. That's going to be the top outtake. So I always end with this question. What advice would you give to someone that's just starting out or early in their career, and they want to achieve the CFO title?
Just focus on the little things. Don't take every job and everything you do isn't about how to get the next recognition, how to get how to get a little bit more pay. Every responsibility I took, every job I took, everything I did was not for recognition or pay. It was like, I want to learn more so I can be better. And so that mentality, I never took a job for money. I never asked for a raise. I always like, how can I learn more? I was, using the finance terms, I want to have the highest DCF value today. So that means I need to learn more. That it's all going to be in the terminal value, right? It's not going to be these near-term cash flows. Think about that terminal value. The more you learn, the better you keep kind of improve yourself. So that terminal value is higher. Using this finance podcast, might as well talk in finance terms, but it's really there's just keep improving. Don't look at the short term, look at the long term. I probably had of anyone I've ever known, I've had the longest tenure in the number 2 to the CFO. So 2008 to 2023 as a number 2 to the CFO. And had I gotten to the CFO job earlier, I probably wouldn't be as successful or as strong of a CFO, because a lot of people who worked under me were CFOs well before I was. And I didn't rush it. I'm like, no, I'm still learning. I don't care about my title. I'm still learning. I can still be better before I get that job. And so don't rush for titles or rush to get too senior too quickly, because you can never go back. You can never take a backwards title. And if you're not ready, you're stuck in this title. You can never get a director job once you're a VP. You can never get a VP of finance job once you're a CFO. And so keep learning as much as you can, and don't be so rushed to get that one higher level title. Learn more, because then you'll be the best VP. You don't want to be the worst VP. You want to be the best VP. You don't want to be a CFO who hasn't seen a lot of things. You want to be a CFO who's seen everything at 4 different. I've been seeing everything since 2008 from so many different angles without being in the seat.
Fantastic advice, because I talk to so many people and they're like, oh, well, I'm only moving for this title and that kind of thing. And people want to move too early. They really do. They think they need to be here because I'm a certain age or whatever it is. So fantastic advice. Well, if you can believe it, our time is up and we actually went over. So sorry to my producer, Karen, but I'm sure that there's going to be people out there that would want to contact you with some additional questions. How do they get a hold of you?
So I'm sure LinkedIn is the best. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. So that'd probably be the easiest way. Shoot me a connection and I'll accept it and shoot me a note.
Fantastic. And I also can be found on LinkedIn as a recruiter. We live on LinkedIn for better or worse. And I'm going to just put this out there that I would love to have you back on as a guest, and maybe with another CFO, and just dig in deeper into some of these things, especially the A player stuff. There's just so much more here that we just run out of time. We don't have the ability to really deep dive into, but I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of your insights and your time. So thank you.
Really appreciate it, Chad. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Financial Footsteps, Candid Conversations with Financial Leaders. We encourage you to apply the knowledge and wisdom shared in these conversations to your own career. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is important to us as we continue to bring you more candid conversations and thought-provoking insights from successful financial leaders.